Hello everyone, welcome to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form. I'm here to talk about Thunderbolts. First, I'll give non-spoiler thoughts, and I'll give a warning when I do go into the spoiler thoughts. So, Thunderbolts is a different kind of Marvel movie, and it's pretty evident from early on. Um, it, I don't even know where to begin. So, the trailers do a good job of telling you that this is a group of misfits, basically. And even then, I feel like there's more beneath the surface. We're back with Yelena and these other characters, and while the audience cannot, well, I should say most of the audience, I guess, probably can't relate to the terrible things that each of the characters involved have done, whether it be recently or in the past or whatever. People can relate to the feeling of, I've been doing this thing over and over, doing these jobs, this work, and no matter what I do, no matter how much I get done, it never feels like enough because it feels like there should be more. And I get that. There have been times throughout my life where, I try and I try and I try, and it still doesn't feel like enough or like I'm getting where I want to be and to be the person I want to be. And it just feels like too much sometimes. And I really appreciate how this film touches on that. It really delves into some of the mental health topics that these characters have to reckon with. They each feel they feel shame about various different things. They feel like they want to do more than what they are getting. And specifics aside, those feelings are very universal. And people say that movies have to feel universal. You get the people who complain about the silliest things, about like, oh, why did this have to be in the movie, or whatever. But it's great to explore those different types of stories, those different types of backgrounds, to get something different. But you can also make it so that there are things here and there where people can feel like what the characters are feeling. And I think that this film accomplishes that pretty well for the most part. Even the music is pretty different from what you would expect from a Marvel movie. This was done by an experimental band called Sun Lux. Apparently, they did the music for Everything Everywhere All at Once, one of my favorite films. So I was really digging that they really took chances with this film stylistically. And you have these talks and these arguments between characters that feel very real. It doesn't feel artificial. They do a great job making this film not feel so artificial. That is something that people have criticized some MCU movies about, and I think this film is really great. I was thinking of giving it like a 9 out of 10, but I do have a gripe, which I'll go into later in the spoilers, which I think might bring it down to an 8.75 out of 10. But the conflict is done really well. It feels pretty different from how we would typically see a an or I guess any superhero film escalate. Perhaps comparable to some other somewhat experimental films. It doesn't get super surreal. I don't want to set that expectation for anyone, but yeah, I think this did a really great job of updating us on some of the side characters that, well, at least from my point of view, they kind of feel like they've been side characters in these other things. You know, you have Ghost, you have Red Guardian, who I feel like Red Guardian's some of his humor could have been dialed back a little bit. Like, I get it, this is a dreary film and you need levity here and there, but there were times where it felt like he was going on and on for too much instead of letting the quieter moments breathe a bit more. So, yeah, I think that could have been dialed back a little bit. But yeah, you have them, you have Bucky, you have Taskmaster, real name's Antonia, in the MCU anyway. If I remember correctly, there are differences in the comics. But yeah, and you also have Bob, all these characters, they each have something to them. Did I forget anyone? Let me check. Let's see, got them. Of course, John Walker. John Walker was a huge part of the Division and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that TV show. And here we see what he's been going through. And of course, you get Valentina back as a recurring character, and this might be the most screen time she's gotten in an MCU project. I could be wrong, but it really felt that way, and it was interesting seeing the maneuvering that she was doing in this film. So, yeah, this is a great film. I see people saying that this is bringing the MCU back on track. I feel like there are some people who dislike more of the post Endgame MCU projects than I do. I think everyone can agree that Eternals and Secret Invasion were definitely duds, the biggest duds of the post Endgame MCU with some of the choices made there. But to me, apart from those, the only projects that didn't really do much for me, or I feel like should have done more, are Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder, Deadpool and Wolverine. Even I've done a video on this channel about why that didn't really do much for me. What else? Or a couple other things. I think. No, actually, maybe those are just the only ones. Let me see if I. Oh, I feel like Moon Knight didn't really do much for me, but I might be in the minority there, but it's very hard to tell because I don't really hear people talk much about Moon Knight really ever since its release a few years ago. So, yeah, those are really the only projects post Endgame that haven't really done much for me, um, and I feel like other people list maybe more than that amount. Uh, I'm excited about the next film, Fantastic Four: The First Steps, but beyond that, Avengers: Doomsday, I'm not really sure that I'm all that excited about it, but I don't know, I guess we'll see. I really think that there are going to be projects that do more for some people and do less for others, but overall, I feel like having a film that can stand on its own and not worry too much about connecting. I mean, this film does focus a bit more on sort of bringing us back to, like, giving us an update on what the status quo is on certain things. But I feel like films, it's a fine line, there don't have to be super connected things. um I guess I just feel like a film should not have to rely too much on the cameo or the post credit scene, like what's gonna happen next or whatever. So I feel like that should be the thing going forward, is not having to worry too much about, this thing has to be watched in order for this thing to be watched, and just, make a movie or a show that can stand on its own, and it can bring back threads that are relevant, but you can update people on those things in a way that makes sense. And I know that's a lot right there. I don't have all the answers. It's just, I don't know. It's kind of like what I think might be a bit refreshing going forward. But yeah, Thunderbolts is great. Watch it if you haven't already. And now is your spoiler warning. I'm serious. I will go into the spoilers. So, okay, here we go. So early on, we get the revelation that all these characters are sent to kill each other so that Valentina doesn't have any loose threads. And the death of Antonia, Taskmaster, is pretty disappointing, I would say. You give depth to all of these characters, but not her. I mean, in Black Widow, people. I guess there were some people who were upset with how she was, uh, you know, felt like there could have been more done with her in Black Widow, I guess. Or I guess there are also the people who would have preferred Taskmaster being more like the source material, but I feel like I appreciate when films take something that didn't work in a previous entry and then make it work in a later one. We had that with uh what's his name, Slattery, Ben Kingsley's character in Iron Man 3. They fixed that in Shang-Chi. But here it feels like there was really no effort to try to do something more meaningful with Taskmaster. And this character who's been through a lot and got damaged by an explosion or bomb or something in her past, and it just doesn't sit well with me that she is just tossed aside like this, whereas all these other characters get to go on their own journey. I thought that Sentry was a unique type of villain in the way that he basically eliminated people. They would turn into these smoky shadows instead of, you would just blow someone up or shoot lasers at them or something. And it really upped the ante, showed how much of a threat he could be, especially when we saw that, there's a heartwarming moment where a child is saved and then child disappears and it's like, oh no, what's gonna happen now? But I think we figured that everyone would be back by the end. I mean, this is a PG-13 Marvel movie. They couldn't go too dark. But yeah, I liked these moments where they dig into their minds, their memories, the things that they're ashamed of, and try to make each other feel better. It is a bit predictable going with a hug. This felt like a Pixar movie moment where, in Soul, Inside Out, Turning Red, you have these characters who explore these different emotions and see certain characters in their darkest places and try to comfort them. But I still appreciated the moment because I feel like with how dark the world seems, we kind of still need more of this type of solution to get this validation that we do feel like enough, that we are enough, that everyone can be enough. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and the conclusion, I kind of caught whiff of this before seeing the film, that the Thunderbolts would turn out to be the new Avengers, and I thought it was done pretty well. I think if this had been Valentina's plan all along, I would have been like, okay, like that was a silly choice. But they make it clear that she's, making stuff up on the spot, and so she comes up with this idea much later as like a last resort. She's thinking things through. So I thought that was done pretty well. I like the whole "we own you now" moment, and the post-credits scene where we see that this team is the new Avengers, but apparently Sam, the new Captain America, he has formed his own Avengers. I'm guessing, I don't know, is this the West Coast Avengers? Is that what it's supposed to be? Or is it supposed to be the Young Avengers? I'm kind of unclear on that. I don't know if anything's been said officially, but I enjoyed this update and how it was 14 months later instead of like 6 or 12 months, like as overused. But I feel like this could have just ended with this update on the team, but of course they felt obligated to show a tease of the Fantastic Four, and I could have done without that, honestly. I mean, we have the trailer for Fantastic Four, The First Steps, right before this film. It's like, I already know that this is coming. I don't need to see the trailer for that. Like, at the end of this, I'm already going to go see it in 2 months. But yeah, just a couple of gripes here and there, but overall, I thought that this was a strong entry in the MCU, and it's really nice to see that lots of people are taken with it. They are really championing it, but uh, I don't know what else to say. I just this is a really good movie. And yeah, I think I'm sticking with 8.75 out of 10 for Thunderbolts. So yeah, very much looking forward to Fantastic Four: The First Steps. But like I said, I don't know that I'm really all that excited about Avengers Doomsday. I wasn't that into the nostalgia fest of Deadpool and Wolverine, and bringing back Robert Downey Jr. for Doomsday, I'm still not sold on that. I just really am not. But we'll see. In the meantime, it's great to have really enjoyed Thunderbolts. And yeah, I just felt like I really needed to talk about that one since I had a lot. I was thinking so much about it in the days that followed. So that's it for now. This is Steven Shinder Reviews in video form, and I'll see you all soon.